John aka Chicken Fillets here. Now, Final Fantasy is one of my all-time favourite JRPG series, video game series in general. It has brought players so much joy with its characters, its gameplay, and its stories. Now, recently on this channel, well, I say recently, about a year or two ago, I did a ranking video ranking the mainline series. But today I want to look at Final Fantasy as a whole. I want to talk about the best games, whether they're mainline or spin-offs. So yes, with this all in mind, we're going to look at the 10 best Final Fantasy games. Now, bear in mind, this is my list, this is my personal preferences, but the great thing with this video is it starts the conversation about what your top 10 is. It will probably be different from mine, and I want to know what they are, so down there, do the comments, and I want to see what you think. Anyway, we're going to do this video in a one-shot, one-take format, so spoilers, mistakes, they'll be here. Now, before we get cracking on with number 10, if you like JRPGs, Final Fantasy, and a wee Scottish guy talk about it, well, please consider subscribing to the channel. Now, to my right, I have got all my games in a little pile, which I'll show you the games. So let's start off with number 10, which funnily enough is not in the pile. It's because I've got the digital version of this. Good start. Anyway, at number 10, we have Dissidia 0.12 or Dissidia Duodecim. You know what I mean. Dissidia Final Fantasy 2. So many titles. Okay, so Duodecim is a spin-off of Final Fantasy. It is a beat-em-up game. It's a one-on-one fighter. Now with this, it takes your main protagonist, your main villains, and pits them against each other of good versus evil, chaos versus Cosmo, I think her name is. Cosmo, that's a restaurant in the UK, Cosmos. Anyway, restaurants aside, this is a great title. I put many hours into this on the PSP. There is a story mode. Now with this as well, the second entry, you get the original story in the first Dissidia game. It's in this one as well, including a prequel, which has your extra characters which have been added. So you play as the likes of Tifa Lockhart from FF7, Laguna Lore. You play as Van, Lightning, Kane from Final Fantasy IV. There's a whole heap of characters in this game. A great thing with this as well is there's loads of variety with the matchups you can do. So, for example, you could have Cloud Strife going one-on-one against Golbez from Final Fantasy IV. You could have Squall going up against Cloud. You could have so many different combinations. I got to the point with this game where I leveled up nearly every single character to try and beat the final secret boss. Well, I don't know if he's secret, but the super boss known as Feral Chaos. So I've got the likes of Cloud at level 100, Sedan from FF9. I've got Jet from FF10 at level 100 as well. Absolutely love this game. Dissidia NT, which was the sequel, let's not talk about that one. Okay, so that's number 10. Number 9 is probably going to be the most controversial game on this list, in my eyes. Now, it was originally released on the Xbox 360 and the PlayStation 3. It is a part of a trilogy, so you know exactly what I'm talking about. It is Final Fantasy XIII Lightning Returns. Now, I have picked the apparent worst Final Fantasy game out of that trilogy. I absolutely adore this game. The reason for this, well, actually, let's do the tail of the tape with this one. So we're playing again as Lightning in this title, and Lightning is woken up from a deep sleep with basically no emotions, and she's tasked by the goddess to save as many souls as possible before the world ends in 13 days. This one has a great combat system in it, and it has more freedom in the exploration. Because with this, there's a couple of different biomes that you're able to explore, and there is tasks in each biome. Now, the more tasks that you do, the story beats will extend how many days you have left. one slight disadvantage with this game, I don't know if disadvantage is the right word, but you know where I'm getting at, is that there was the sort of timer that this game had. So you had certain like restrictions with your times. Certain events would only become available after a certain time in the day or after a set amount of days. Super bosses were like harder fights were unlocked depending on when you face them in the calendar on this as well. I always remember as well getting this. This is second hand. It came in the steel case, and I got the DLC with it, which had the likes of the Cloud Strife soldier attire with the Buster Sword, likes of Yuna from Final Fantasy X's gear as well. And it was great with the little like details that they did with this. So if you won your fight that you were in wearing the Cloud getup and the Buster Sword, they would play the Final Fantasy VII fanfare. I loved it. I really do think that this just gets a lot of bad rep. I think it's a great game. That's why it's on my top 10. So, let's talk about a mainline entry. Now, okay, you could have considered that mainline, but it was a sequel. So this is the first true mainline entry on this list, and it is Final Fantasy X. Now, I've shown you the PS Vita version. This is the one that I tend to play all the time. So again, let's talk about what the game's about. So you play as Tidus or Tidus. Let me know down below. I always put both in so I don't get you've said it wrong, although I have said it wrong. You know what I mean. Anyway, so we play as him and we follow his journey in the land of Spira, following Yuna on her pilgrimage to get as many Aeons as possible to fight and defeat Sin. Sin, who comes around every couple of years or 100 years, I can't remember, and essentially destroys everything, and it's up to the summoner to destroy Sin and bring peace to the land for a couple of years. So with this as well, the reason I like this one as much as I do is because when Final Fantasy X first came out, I've told this story plenty of times on this channel, I hated it. Yeah, I hated Final Fantasy X when it first came out because it wasn't like Final Fantasy 8 and 9. Didn't have a world map, blah, blah, blah. We know the story by now. And if you're new to the channel, well, you understand why. But once I was getting back into JRPGs a bit more, I picked up Final Fantasy X on the Vita and on PS3 because you're able to move your files across back and forth. And I loved everything about this game. The story blew me away. The combat's great, especially you're able to see whose turn it is next. You're able to plan out tactically what you're going to be doing. The music was fantastic. And this was the first fully voiced Final Fantasy game. Absolutely loved it. I do have revisited this a few times, and I think I'm due to revisit it soon. If you're after, it's available in pretty much nearly everything now. So that is that one. Now, this will be the first Final Fantasy game to be Final Fantasy VII game, should I say, to be on this list because, as you know, how much I love that title. I mean, look, I've got the Buster Sword right there. So, we are going to look at Crisis Core Final Fantasy VII Reunion. And now I've specifically picked this one. I'm not including the PSP one, although that's great. So, tail of the tape with this is we are playing as Zack Fair. Now, Zack Fair is a soldier operative who... It's the prequel sort of... Let's start again. This is the thing. We're doing one shot, one takes. Right. Crisis Core Final Fantasy VII Reunion. We are playing as Zack Fair, who's a soldier operative. It's the run-up to Final Fantasy VII. We see the likes of the important Nibelheim incident. We also see how Sephiroth became the big bad, and the origins of Cloud Strife as well. The growth of Zack Fair I really enjoyed in this story, because at first he's not really a likable character, but during this playthrough, your playthrough of him, he really matures, he really starts to become a likable character. The Combat in this game has been refined, should I say. It has got like a mixture. I like to describe it as the Final Fantasy VII Remake battle system mixed in with the original Crisis Core system. The graphics was overhauled as well, with this basically being it was like a graphical remake with other parts into it. But the story's fully intact from the original. I love Crisis Core Final Fantasy VII Reunion, and a small little tidbit as well before we move on to the next entry. This is probably the best looking Switch title on the system. I've said it before and I'll say it again. It is glorious on there. So we're on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We're on number 6. So this is the first of the PS1 titles that will be on this list, and it is Final Fantasy IX. Now, we are playing as a character known as Zidane, and Zidane is a part of a group who tried to kidnap Princess Garnet. From there, things start to go a bit skew-with, and there is Princess Garnet's fight against her mother, and things keep spiraling. Now, this was the return for, in the PS1 era, this was the return of going into a more of a medieval setting, because in my experience, when I played my Final Fantasy journey was Final Fantasy VII, Final Fantasy VIII, and Final Fantasy IX. So I'd been used to the likes of not steampunk, what's the word? Yeah, steampunk, that's the one. Steampunk. So I'd been used to the likes of a steampunk setting of the likes of Final Fantasy VII and VIII. And this was going to a fantasy setting. And it was Hironobu Sakaguchi's Swan Song. It saw the return of having 4 party members in battles. More of the classic job systems were back with the likes of I say job system, that's not the right word. Classifications. You had a character like Freya, who was the Dragoon. You had Vivi, who was your mage, etc. Absolutely fantastic. The music is memorable in this game. Animation style stands the test of time as well. Absolutely glorious game. We just need that supposed remake. I want to see that as well. So, okay, we are on to the top 5. So, recently, just to give you an understanding where the placement goes with this one and why it's here. Now, Final Fantasy IX, which I just showed you, was in my top 3 Final Fantasy games. That was in my ranking video as well. Spoiler for that video. But recently, Final Fantasy IX has actually gone down. This game is now in my top 3 Final Fantasies of all time in the main ranking. Keep that in mind, main ranking. So, it is Final Fantasy 15. And I could already hear people going, really? Final Fantasy 15 here? So, Final Fantasy 15, we follow Noctis, Ignis, Prompto, and Gladio in their journey to defeat the Niflheim Empire. You see the story of Noctis' growth from this prince who doesn't really want to be in this position he's in, to being thrust into a role that he never wanted, essentially. It was the first Final Fantasy to go full action-based combat, more of an open world scenario with this as well. It didn't come out the gate well. It was in development hell for a long time, and there was stuff missing from the base game. It was eventually patched, there was DLC released, and there was also the Royal Edition, which is essentially the complete edition for this game. Now, the reason it's here, when I fully started getting back into JRPGs, Final Fantasy 15 was the JRPG which was coming out at the time, and I just lapped up everything to do with this. So the likes of the anime, the likes of the film, anything I could get my hands on which was Final Fantasy 15 related, I was all over it. I bought Final Fantasy Type 0 HD for that demo, like many other people did. There was the other demos which kept on releasing on the PS4. I would download them straight away and replay it. I just love this title. And last year, what really solidified its placing on my top 3 in the mainline series and the positioning here is I played the Final Fantasy 15 Royal Edition for the first time on the Steam Deck. It was the first game I completed on Steam Deck when I got it. And I loved every second of it. It reminded me of that journey I went on originally with Final Fantasy 15. Everything about it was so damn good. And having that portably just blew my little mind. So yes, Final Fantasy 15, it may be controversial, but I love this title. So next up, another controversial Final Fantasy game because of certain things within it. So that title, Final Fantasy VIII, which is, honestly, I absolutely adore this game. Now in this, we play as Squall, who is a part of a mercenary group called Seed, who are tasked to eliminate Sorceress Dia. From there, things again spiral out of control. Now, with this, it does have a controversial kind of outlook with it because people think that the story's convoluted. They don't like the battle system because, like, so if your enemies level up as you do, the junction system is not great. You could essentially break the game by doing stuff with your guardian forces or your summons early on in game. I mean, you could get the ultimate weapon for Squall within disc 1. That's how broken the game could be. But with all its flaws, I absolutely love this title. This was the second Final Fantasy I played. I remember when playing Final Fantasy VII, falling in love with that game, and then looking for this. This got advertised in a magazine, a PlayStation magazine. I begged my mum and dad for my birthday to get me this. I got it. Still this copy. Absolutely love this title. Music's fantastic as well. That's one thing that I have seen people talk about, how the OST for Final Fantasy VIII is awesome. It's actually got my favourite piece of music from this game in any sort of JRPG space is the song Fisherman's Horizon. Absolutely fantastic. Also, another little bit before we go on to number 3, had to check how many games there, is that the Gunblade from Squall is my favourite Final Fantasy weapon above the Buster Sword. That's saying something, is it? So anyway, speaking of the Buster Sword, as you can tell, we're down to the final 3. So strap in, because yes, Final Fantasy VII is going to appear 3 times here. But in what order? So, at number 3 is Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, which is the second entry within the Final Fantasy VII Remake trilogy. Now in this, we follow Cloud and party after the events of Final Fantasy VII Remake, once they've escaped Midgar, up until a certain point in the original story. We got full exploration of the world of Gaia. It is a fully fleshed out world. It follows similar beats to the original game. The combat, like I mentioned before, fantastic. The music is outstanding. Everything about this game is utterly amazing, and it was my number 1 game of 2024. So it begs the question of, why is it at number 3 if I'm bigging it up that much? I think this is an absolute glorious title, hands down. The only reason it's at number 3 is because of the reasons that you'll hear in the next this is the fun in my next entry. So in number 2, as you may gather, is that my number 2 Final Fantasy game, the best Final Fantasy game, Final Fantasy VII Remake. Now you might be thinking, how have I picked this over that? Over Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. I'll get to that. But Final Fantasy VII Remake is the first of the remake trilogy. It focuses in on the Midgar section of Final Fantasy VII, which was essentially, a 4 to 5 hour section in the original turned into a fully fledged game. So we know about the combat, the action-based combat, how amazing it was. Seeing this fully realized fully realized Midgar. So why is this ranked higher? Now, in a technical look, Rebirth is in general the better game, but in my eyes, I picked this one because of everything which led up to this. the memories I have of this. So bring it back a couple of years. Now, I've always said that Final Fantasy VII in general is my all-time favorite game. But that announcement at E3, I have never in my lifetime been so hyped up for a game, trailer, release, anything, because that announcement dropped out of nowhere. Absolutely nowhere. I had no sort of inkling of it. I saw nothing online about leaks or anything. It just dropped. Those footsteps of seeing Cloud walking through the slums, everything from that Buster Sword, everything, the lead up to this game was fantastic. And then once I got my hands on this game, I could not believe I was playing the remake, which had been alluded to for so many years. Since I was younger, I mean, they talked about Final Fantasy VII being remade on the PlayStation 2. And then you got that technical demo which they showed on the PlayStation 3. And then it finally happened. Now, a lot of people will say, but it's only just a certain section of that original title. Well, in the original Final Fantasy VII, Midgar's my favourite section of that game. I have great memories of playing in Midgar, so imagine having a full game just dedicated to Midgar. The other thing as well with this game is it does improve other characters which had a very minuscule spotlight on them. The likes of Avalanche, Biggs, Wedge and Jesse gave them full personalities. The voice acting in this game is phenomenal. Everything that they've put into this, the music, outstanding. And the fact is as well that they even added in, for the PS5 version, they gave you a free update to boost the FPS. Then you got a brand new, like a DLC story which introduced Yuffie into Midgar. So a completely new outlook into the original game. That was fantastic having that. Also, certain parts of the original Final Fantasy where they didn't show you, they didn't hear. So what I mean by this, let's say when the plate's falling in Final Fantasy VII. In the original, Tifa tells Aerith to go get Marlene, and that's it. And then you see them in the helicopter. But in this, you see that happen. You run through the slums as Aerith to get Marlene from Seventh Heaven. And that scene where Marlene starts crying, this and next thing, and being a parent to yourself, you know, look, it's a game, but no parent ever wants to see a child cry. Never. And hearing that real emotion from the voice actress or the child actress playing Marlene or whomever, it was just it's just fantastic. It's expanded everything for a title that I absolutely love. So yes, although that Rebirth may be technically the better game, this one still tops it just for me. So yes, with that all in mind, let's go to number 1. So there we have it. The 10 best Final Fantasy games. What are your top 10? Let me know in the comments down below. Now, if you like what you're hearing and seeing on this channel, please help me grow it by liking, sharing and subscribing. And if you want to be kept up to date with everything Chicken Fillets, you know what to do. Hit that notification bell. This has been John, aka Chicken Fillets, and until next time, tatty bye. I did that again. What's that about?